Hello, Alisha. Welcome to Inside the Industry.
Hi, thank you for having me.
I am so stoked to have you. You come very highly recommended from a couple good friends in the industry. So I am stoked to have you on.
I'm so excited.
Yay. You have a lot. When I was looking you up, girl, I was looking at all the things. I was like, talk about a round artist. You are very round in what you have, not only a skill set, but experience. You've been around the block. It almost like looking at your resume, it was intimidating. I was like, okay, fine. But even just like the things you've dabbled in, I feel like all of us in makeup school, they tell you all, you could get into bridal, you could get into retail, you could do Broadway, you could do especially, there's just so much to dive into. It's a little overwhelming. Like, I kind of want to try it all. You kind of did. You kind of did.
I did. And you know, it was funny. I really thought when I first started, like all I wanted to do was special effects. Like that's actually what got me to go to school.
Mm-hmm.
I got there and I had a heart to heart with a teacher, and they basically told me like, listen, that's great if you want to work in a lab. At the time they were kind of like, you don't really strike me as the kind of person that wants to work like a 9 to 5 in a shop.
Fair.
So like you might want to really learn beauty. And I was like, okay, well, I mean, sure. And then it really took a while for me to be interested at all in learning any of that. And then I just kind of over the like 12 weeks I was in school was just kind of like, okay, I do need to know this.
Yeah.
And then when I got out of school, I was so thankful that I did that because as we all know, unless you're working in a shop, 80% of my work really is beauty work.
Truly, truly, especially with TV. I mean, think of all the TV shows, unless you get on a really dope period piece or something that's super specialty, it really is making people look like people the best you can.
Exactly.
That's it. So as long as you kind of have that, which to be honest is still a very hard skill set for some to achieve. So
I mean, it was definitely hard for me. Like I wasn't like a makeup wearer when I was a kid. So
interesting.
I didn't really get it. Like I was like, I don't understand like concealing here and like why do you need that? And
right.
It was literally like holding a baby's hand when I was in school. Like I feel bad for my teachers looking back. No. Like a little I was a little like averse to the process. Like I was just kind of like, oh, I don't want to learn how to do an eyelash. I was really bad at eyebrows. Like I could not make them even.
Girl, I still, cause I don't do my own brows. So it makes it real. It's not something I've practiced.
Not like motor practice. Yeah.
Right. It's just not in there. Yeah. I still have trouble with brows. I got to extra focus when I do them. It's so hard.
Totally. And I had a teacher that was like, listen, you're terrible at eyebrows and I want you to go home and draw 50 matching pairs of eyebrows. Stop. And until you can do that, like 50 full pairs of eyebrows, I'm going to make you keep doing this. So my homework, like every night for like 2 weeks, because it took me literally 2 weeks to be able to nail 50 pairs of matching eyebrows. I would take her my paper and she'd circle them and cross them off. Like, this doesn't match. This doesn't match. And she would be like, you flipped your paper upside down and traced it, didn't you? And I was like, oh my God, like, and I hated it, but it's literally what made me so much better at my job.
I was going to say that muscle memory. Was that at Joe Blasco or where was that?
Yeah, that was at Blasco.
Okay. How long was their program when you went?
It was like 12 weeks for beauty and then another 6 if you did advanced special effects.
Wow. And did you do all the way through?
I did, yeah. It was kind of a last minute decision. I didn't originally sign up to do effects too, but when I had gotten my hands in, I thought basically the main course was going to include more advanced technique.
I hear you, yeah.
It was just touching on the surface. And because I'd gone there specifically for effects, I was like, well, maybe I need to take this extra 6 weeks and really learn how to do all of this stuff, which is funny now because all of that stuff I learned, not that it wasn't helpful, but all of that technology is like old because this was in 2004.
Girl, it's so infuriating. You're like, I have it. And we just keep evolving. This industry doesn't stop.
Yes. So it's like, it's cool to know how to run foam, and foam is still great and relevant. And I use it all the time. I actually prefer it because that's what I learned with, but
I've heard that so often. It's foreign to me though. Like you speak a different language in special effects to me, which you're saying that's your love. And I respect it so much because I really think it takes a certain special kind of patience and understanding for products and like what works with things and how to, I don't know. What is your favorite part of SFX? Like what really gets you going? Is it just the final product or do you genuinely enjoy the throughout, like all the little finite, like twinkering that you have to do to make it just go?
That's such an, I've never been asked that. And that's really actually a really interesting question. I think this is kind of why too, when you look at my resume, you're like, Jesus, like you do kind of everything. I have a really unique, like left, right brain situation. So like I can operate and switch into both. That's kind of, you know, how the planner came about anyway, but it's sort of like, I really like the logical, like almost mathematical side of doing effects and like measurements and tweaking certain formulas and stuff like that. It's kind of like you're using that almost more logical side of your brain.
You absolutely are. I lack it. That's why I can't do it.
You know, and I totally respect that. And it's sort of like, but then there's like that like dreamer side of you that can kind of sort of create the art. And so I basically got through school and I was like, you know what, I don't know why I did this. I was like, I'm going to switch to editorial. Like, I really like
midway in school or after school, you were like, direction change.
This was sort of like right after school. I was like, you know what? I really want to try like print. I want to, because I was building a portfolio anyway. So I'm like, I'm going to switch to print and I'm going to try to get in there. And it didn't take very long, honestly, for me to figure out that like, that is not for me, because I kind of have figured out like, there's people like Lottie Stannard, who's like a dreamer. Like they can literally like create these insanely beautiful, super crazy creative things that still are beautiful, but not too weird. And I was just like, I'm just going to glue shit to people's faces like that. And that doesn't work.
This will work. That'll do.
It ain't cute. Okay. So anyway, I wasn't as much of like a like ethereal sort of artist that I
hear you.
Sort of thought I could be. And I was like, I really just need to stick to like this like mixture of like clean beauty to special effects. Like that's kind of my sweet spot. So then I started working in film, and I always kind of wanted to. I've always been a huge film nerd. Like I went to I took a bunch of film classes. I went to a performing arts high school. So
same. That's where it really gets your juices going. You're like, theater, performance, makeup, costumes.
And that's totally how I got into it in the first place, was a makeup class that I had taken in like a behind the scenes kind of theatrical class. But I always kind of was interested in film. I guess it's really intimidating when you come from not LA and you don't know anybody. My parents don't know anybody. My parents are very blue collar. You meet who you meet, and I was just kind of hoping like, I'll meet somebody, and somebody that I met did give me a really great opportunity. And that sort of was like, okay, I could do this. And then I ended up working on a bunch of like student short films for like 8 months straight, like no money.
But
it really solidified like, okay, I really like doing super clean, natural, making people look like people.
Love that.
And even I kind of even dug harder into that. So it was like, okay, I have to make this interesting for me. So even like thinking about subtleties of like, a character, would they wear their eyeliner a specific way? What story is that telling if they wear like a cat eye like we have on? Like what story is our face telling the public about who we are and what we love, and how approachable we are? And
I like that you say that, because what's crazy is I feel like when I watch shows now, it's something that I can now immediately see, just because our eyes are trained to see it now, of like the whys, and like why would that cop have a beautiful like sleeked hair, or oh wow, she has a lot of extra shine or blush. I'm like, would she actually take the time in the morning to give a shit about that blush? Like just little things that you're like, does it make sense for the character? And I think it sets apart makeup artists in their departments and how they're running with how they're viewing the script, how they're taking time to break down and understand what they're doing, not just doing pretty TV makeup. I think it sets tone, and you can see it. If you're looking for it, you can see the difference.
Absolutely. And it was actually funny. Like 3 days ago, I was on set, and I was, we got this new first AD on the show I'm on, and he came over and he's like, all right, pretty committee, let's do it. And I'm like, okay, first of all, hate it. And I was like, I literally told him, I was like, listen, dude, I really appreciate your enthusiasm, because that's what he always says. And so I turned it back on him, but I was like, really appreciate your enthusiasm. And I was like, but our specific department isn't really here to make the characters pretty. We're making characters for a movie. And I was like, so really HMU is fine if you really need to call us. And I was like, please God, don't call us pretty committee, glam squad, any vanities, any of that shit, because we're filmmakers just like the rest of this crew.
Exactly.
And he was like, I am so sorry.
And they don't I'm glad he was, but they don't realize it's like, especially a certain group, and I get it a lot. Depending on the cast, I'll kind of let it roll and be like, oh, whatever. But it is like it's one of those like microaggressions that I don't think they realize they're doing it to our department, because we are always the last on the list as far as like taken seriously. And it's always like, well, just hurry up and do that. Or, oh, can't you just make this person look old and have this high expectation of quality that I want you to give me, but do it in 10 seconds? And you're like, what do you guys think we do in this trailer? I don't understand what you think goes on, but I don't know.
I think they literally think that we just sit there and like gossip and drink coffee and
really,
like sling some concealer, and like they don't realize that, like, you know, for example, like I always think back to this makeup that I had to do, that a girl was playing the director. So the director had written this story about coming out as a teenager, and she never wore makeup, but the girl playing her was beautiful, and she always had a full face in her normal everyday life. And this is one of the first things that she did. So she was having, I had to have a lot of really hard conversations with her on the side about conversations that I had had with the director, and sort of molding her into her ability to be comfortable enough to go on camera, wearing no makeup, crying, turning red-faced.
Right.
But that's what the director wanted, and I didn't want to leave it. Even this was one of the first things I ever worked on, but even then I kind of knew, like, it's up to me to like psychologically sort of mold this actor into being comfortable with that, because they're just not, and I get it. Like, it's terrifying. But it is literally in my reel to this day. I still use that shot of her because it's so pretty, and I know she hated it. Like she hated it, and she probably hates me to this day for it, but I talked her into it. And I'm fine with it. Like it's such a good shot, and we shot it on 35 millimeter back when we were still doing that.
And sometimes that just takes a good professional like yourself to be like, okay, bigger picture here for the vision of what we're actually trying to complete. I've had young girls come on set too. I don't know how young she was. Sometimes you're newer, the insecurities are way more there. You don't really care about, they do care about, of course, getting into their role and doing their part, but they still want to do it looking pretty. They still want to do it. I'm going to be huge on a screen. I still want to look cute. It's like, nope, not every role requires you to look cute, and they have to embrace that. It really is the psychological part of our job that then kicks in, that we have to come in and be that soothing voice, that motivational voice to help them get through that anxiety just to get out the trailer door and go do their job. I wish so much of it is known when, like you're saying, if you're close with the director or as a collective group in HMU, when we're working, we know that that's a part of our jobs, like how emotionally and like energetically, how giving it is. It's not just painting a face and they're gone. We have to do so much more petting and just helping and coasting. It's such an intimate, vulnerable space. We get to see these guys up close and personal, and there's way more to the job than just painting a face. It's crazy.
Absolutely. And it's just crazy to me that, like, you know, other departments, and not everybody, it's not important for everybody, but it goes straight up the talent runners all the way up through the AD team. It's like they really need to stop and think about like what it is that process is creating in the morning. It makes performances better. It makes people perform faster. They don't need as many takes because they're already in the zone. It's just kind of crazy, like what we end up having to do as part of our job.
And I do agree with you, though. It's a really collective thing of like how they're being treated from the morning, from maybe just how it's all functioning as like a working machine on set. And you can tell when you're on a distracting set or a more playful set, or how serious are we going to be they take a long time to shoot, or, you know, they dilly dally a little bit more. And then you get on the sets that are like, do. And everything is really like, we're at work, guys. Like, we're making movies. This is sick. We get to be in makeup, which again, I take serious to a degree, but I also then realize that it's makeup. So I throw my hands up like, okay, yeah, right.
Disposable art.
Like we'll be okay. We can fix it. But yeah, it's just interesting setting the tone and getting in different spaces. And as we've mentioned, we have to adapt to every new scenario. That's another thing on top of our job. You got to go with where you're at and how and what setting you're in and how your energy is going to be. We need a lot more accreditations than sometimes we get. It's wild.
I know. And that's the thing that, like, I just made a post on Instagram about this. It's the things that people don't see, and people just literally think that we're there to have like a wild ruckus time. And like, I'm goofy, like I'm chitty chatty, like I'll talk with everybody. But at the end of the day, I'm literally having a conversation with like the sound guy, and I'm listening to what the director's saying to this person about the next shot. I'm listening in this ear to what the AD is talking about with this person. I have drama in the back of my mind about like something that's going to come up that I know that we need to address. Like there's just so many parts and pieces. And when we get home, we're just,
oh my God,
done, typically like just, I've absorbed so much energy from the day that, you know, just all that stuff goes unseen. And while every job is very hard on a film set, there's pressure on every single person.
100%.
I just really feel like HMU kind of gets the short end of the stick on it.
I agree. Because I think it's, you know, everything we've said, it's just a very interesting angle that they put on us. Like, you guys will be fine. It's light and fluffy. Deal with it. Who cares? And it's a lot more. But you've done, I mean, speaking of, you've done a lot more than just even on set. You've dabbled in, God, retail, a bunch. And that's, talk about different working scenarios and being like a therapist, psychologist of all the you've had to put different hats on throughout your life in many different forms. And I kind of want to touch on something I watched of you recently, and it really spoke to me because I was like, I like this idea, not even idea. It's something that I think every makeup artist and just creative at one point hits in their life. It's like a pivotal turning point where it might be an actual event. Maybe it's just a sentence, a literal blip of time in a moment. It could be an overnight thing. It could be a dragged out months thing of like change. But I know you have a moment in your life around, I think you had said 2013, where you were you leaving a retail job? I kind of want you to tell us your pivotal moment story that brought you to where you are today. I feel like this for you and many artists have it, where they've either been doing something for an extended amount of time and they just go, you know what, this isn't actually fully aligned with where I want to be, what I want to be doing creatively, and it needs to change today. So I want you to kind of give us that background, that story. I'm dying to know.
So I'll give you sort of a precursor to even that moment, because so basically I was working in short films and I had worked on a couple of features. I had a really bad breakup, like heart-wrenching breakup. I ran out of money because, as we know, you know, short films, student films, little janky indie films, you're making like $100.
$100. Yep.
Rent in 2000, I think this happened in 2006. Like 2005, 2006, my rent was still $1,100 a month for a studio apartment. Like, you know, it's just kept on going up. But, you know, I'm like 19 at the time, maybe 20. So I ran out of money and I'm like, Dad, I got to come home. And he's like, okay. But my parents had actually moved to Northern Nevada at the time, so there wasn't a lot of opportunity. I grew up in the Bay Area. So even if I had moved home originally, like I would have been fine. I could have just kind of like made my way through San Francisco, but Carson City, y'all. Like, nothing. So I was like, I got to get a job. I got to get back on my feet. The only thing in town was like this little tiny retailer called Gottschalk's that was kind of like it was like below Macy's. So it was like, you know, on the rungs of like sexy department store life. Gottschalk's was a little under Macy's, but they had an opening at the Clinique counter.
Interesting. Yes.
So I went on to be like a part-timer at the Clinique counter, and I'm a little competitive, so I got really into like the goals and the money side of it. And then and they just, I had a really good account coordinator who kind of like could see that that kind of stuff excited me, so it was able to keep me in the job a little bit longer than I had wanted. So as my counter manager left, I took her position. Then I was running a counter, and my counter was running like double-digit increases every month. So there was a counter in Northern California after it was like probably a year that I'd been there. There was a counter in Northern California that had been like failing horribly. And they used to be $1 million counter. So my AC was like, hey, can you go save this counter, please? And I was like, yes, move me back to California. Thank God.
Wow, it's like my ticket. Yeah.
Yes, I got to get back, because it's so expensive. And I didn't realize this even more so when you leave California and try to come back. It's really hard. But they were willing to pay some of my moving stuff. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to move. So I end up in Chico, California, which is like way up north. But I'm kind of within driving distance of Sacramento. So I'm like, okay, on my days off, I can drive to Sacramento, even the city in San Francisco, and I can like find photographers to shoot with. That's how I'll kind of like work my way back in. So I stayed there, but there was a woman that I had worked with in the fragrance department that I had like this deep heart to heart with her one day. And she was like, listen, she's like 66, gorgeous. She's like, I started this job part-time just for fun. And she's like, and I got stuck. And she's like, I can see you don't belong here. And she's like, so don't get stuck. And I was like, okay, I just got to like keep trying to get back to LA, like whatever it's going to take. Like in the back of my head, I got to do this. So the recession hit and Gottschalks ended up getting sold. They tried to get sold, but they ended up bankrupting and liquidating the entire store. So I had nowhere to go.
Oh my God.
This was like 2008, right at like the middle of 2008. So I talked to my executive and I was like, look, I don't have anywhere to go, but if you're willing to, I will transfer to a store in SoCal. Like I'll move. And I was dating somebody new at the time, and he he was like, I'll transfer to Long Beach State. If you want to move there, I'll go. And I was like, oh my God, let's go. So I got really lucky. He was a really great guy.
Great guy, yeah.
So he just kind of like helped encourage me to move back there. And so I moved to Long Beach, and then again, like I was at a Macy's now, and I'm sort of working, and I was like, okay, maybe I do want to be like an executive for this company. Cause I really, as much as retail sucks, Clinique's a really great company to work for. So I recommend them as a retail partnership if you can get a position with them. They're really great.
Love to know. Yeah.
At least 10 years, 15 years ago, whatever, how long it's been.
Right.
I can't speak to them now, but so that kind of all happened, and I was in I was back in LA, but I was in like more Orange County, and so on all my days off I was freelancing.
Good for you. God, that hustle is
it was a lot. I was literally working 7 days a week.
Like unimaginable. Crazy.
Yeah. So then cut to 2013. Basically, I had this massive turning point. I had caught a random virus, a really, really rare virus called hantavirus. And basically what it does is it shuts your entire body down. And I didn't know even what it was. And the hospital didn't know what it was at the time. And essentially after about 4 days in the hospital, I went into a coma. So I was in a coma for a couple weeks. It was one of those situations where, sorry to get all deep on it.
No, please.
So basically it was one of those situations where they were like, we don't know if she's going to live.
No way.
I couldn't breathe on my own. So I was intubated, obviously, because I'm in a coma. I couldn't breathe on my own. I had no white blood cells left. So they had done tons of testing, and they literally could not figure out what was wrong with me. We didn't figure out what was actually wrong with me until I got better.
Wow.
Which was crazy because it's such a rare thing here. It's usually something that you would catch in like South Korea.
And God, what a thing for the times we're in right now of like,
I know.
Did that have you know what I mean? How crazy.
Yeah. And it gives me a lot of perspective about what is going on right now. But even so, when I came out of it, I remember like, all I really remember, because they gave me a blood transfusion essentially, and it like just 6 hours later, I was like trying to breathe on my own. So they were able to get me out of the coma. And I remember having like a brief conversation with an ICU nurse, and it's kind of funny because in my head I'm like, did that actually happen? Because I remember I was on a lot of drugs.
You were on a lot of drugs, and you were asleep, like you're in a full coma. You wake up in a whole different, like that's crazy.
So I'm like, maybe I wasn't even actually having this conversation with the nurse. Who knows? So this day,
this was you in your other dimension. Yeah.
Even if it was in my head, I'm glad I had this conversation. But literally, her name was Jean Melsheimer, the woman that I had that conversation. No, not Jean Melsheimer. Jean Reggio, that was who it was. My fragrance lady, my lovely fragrance lady. And I swear to God, I heard her voice in the back of my head that was like, don't get stuck. And I just kept thinking about it. And I was like, I hate this job, because at the time I had moved from Clinique. I was with somebody, a different brand who's no longer around anymore. I was now like in the field. I was traveling store to store to store. Yeah. I was miserable. I was working like 70 hours a week for like $37,000 a year. Like it was garbage money. It was terrible, but I was like anything to just be here. So I can be in proximity to
paying my bills and
So I'd had this like, I think I had this conversation where I was just like, how long was I out? And I was like, I have to quit my job. And I remember, and this I'm lucid now, because I had gotten moved to from ICU to the regular hospital for observation for a few days. And my boss is literally calling me, telling me that like I've been like let go indefinitely, even though he can't legally let me go of my job. And he's like, I need doctor's notes and proof. Like the CDC is in my room, taking the phone from me, yelling at my boss about how it's illegal what he's doing. And the CDC actually gave me a doctor's note to give to him, because I like at the time, again, they don't know what's actually been wrong with me. They don't know if I'm contagious. Like it was insanity.
So many things.
All I just kept thinking was like, I'm done with retail. Like this is not for me. Like I see how disposable I am.
Oh yeah,
It's
that would have put the whole stamp on the whole thing for me. That's crazy.
exactly. So right before I left, I had told my boyfriend at the time, I was like, look, the first feature I book when I'm out of here, I'm quitting my job. And he was like, I support it. Like, it's going to be really tough. Are you sure? And I was like, I'm going to save every freaking penny. So I basically did it where like I had every paycheck I had was like the money I lived off of, which like I just said was 37 grand. It wasn't a lot of money.
Wow.
To live in LA, but my rent was really cheap. And then every bit of freelance money I made went into a savings account just to kind of help save money for like a, you know, a padding for when I decided to make the jump. So mind you, this is all really scary too, because when this all happens, like when you go into a coma and you're in the ICU for that amount of time, your body starts to atrophy. So I couldn't walk, I couldn't lift my arms. So I was like, how am I even going to do makeup? And I don't have insurance at the time also because, you know, America. So I don't have money for a physical therapist, and that has to be
Getting
paid for.
stress hives listening.
I know. Oh. So I don't even know where it comes from, because it's not like I come from a family with like super, you know, like super strength or like all this crazy tenacity to like go forward and do whatever you got to do. I don't know where it comes from, but I literally was like, I'm going to have to physical therapy myself. And so my mom was like trying to help me, like, I'm just practicing walking. I would stand and watch TV at night so that I could get my body to be able to stand long enough. I would just kind of hold onto the couch and like stand. I retaught myself how to do makeup by setting my elbows on the countertop and sitting on my knees on the floor and pushing my arms up and making my arms do these motions so that I could refigure out how to do eyeliner.
Your motor skills, getting him like going.
Exactly. So like my mom had at her office, because I was staying with them temporarily while I was trying to rehabilitate myself, there was like a stairwell at her office. So I would go with her in the morning to work, and I would pull myself up the railing to like force my body to be able to walk upstairs properly. And it didn't honestly take very long to rehabilitate myself. It maybe took like 3 or 4 weeks to really get my muscles like going. I was a little slow and I was a little bit wobbly, but it was fine. And then I went back to work at that shit job. And I mean, sorry if you're watching this, boss,
Not
but
sorry.
I mean, I wasn't on a time clock. So I was like, fuck these people. So what I was doing was like, I was clocking in and I'd be at a freelance job, or I would like go do a shoot in the morning. I swear to you, they were paying me shit, whatever.
Good for you.
Yeah. So I would like go in the morning, or I would tell them I was there in the morning. I would go do a shoot in the morning, and then I'd show up to work at 3:30 in the afternoon and work till like 6 and then go home. Like they had no idea. And I don't care to this day, because I needed to do what I needed to do to get out of there.
Yeah.
And then I had gotten a phone call from this director. I don't even remember how I applied. It's somebody that I still work with here and there to this day.
Get out.
But he had this like 10-day feature. And I was like, it was $100 a day. No joke.
You were like, take it.
Done. And I was like, there's the sign. There it is. And I was like, I just booked a feature. Done. I don't care if it's $100 a day. I have, at this time I had saved like $15,000 or $16,000. So I was like, I'm good.
Yeah. Yeah. The little cushion.
Exactly. So that's basically what the turning point was, is I was like, I cannot do this. It doesn't make me happy. There was other things in my life that I made huge changes. I feel like if I had met you then and we're talking now, like it'd be two completely different people.
Oh, I have no doubt. Yeah.
Yeah. And unfortunately, because of that, you know, that great guy I was dating, like we ended up separating too, but we're still great friends. He's a great person.
Yeah.
But I just was becoming somebody completely different. And
you were really, girl, that, first of all, didn't know we were going there. I'm so happy we did. No, I'm so happy, because this is the kind of stuff where like, this is why I do this, because you don't know people's stories, and you have zero idea as to how they got to where they are today and why they are the way they are when it comes to excellence, or how their work ethic is, or where it's just you see it and what it means. I mean, you literally, as far as I'm concerned, just had to literally scrap everything from scratch. Physically, one, emotionally, two, and doing it on your own. I know what that's like to come from like a blue collar family, and it's like, cool, they support the dream, but that's about it. You know, I got to make it on my own. I got to have money. I got to have the drive. I have to keep that motivation alive. And then at the same time, I got to live and breathe and pay my damn bills and do it. That is crazy. Oh, I love you. Are you tearing up? You're going to make me cry.
No, I'm not, but I was earlier.
Okay, good. I'm like, no, don't do it. I will cry so bad.
Just because I haven't really talked about it in public. I'm so sorry. My computer just did something really strange.
Oh, no, you're okay on my end. You're good.
Okay, we got to make this go away. Hold on. Okay.
I'm the same. I'm like clicking things.
Oh my God. What did my computer just do? Where
you're
are
okay.
you? Oh no. Okay, there we go.
You got it? Yeah, good.
I was like, look. Yeah, so it's just kind of a really crazy story that, and I think from that point forward, like I even have a hard time kind of relaxing now when I get home from work. I'm like, what else can I be working on? Like because there's just so much that I wanted to do that I was kind of like, well, I'll get there eventually. But then there's that like Jean Reggio voice in the back of my head. Don't
Dude, she to me is like your little mini guardian angel, like living and breathing on life, like just there to like pocket it.
Swear. And I tell her this all the time. Every time I spire on Facebook, I'm like, Jean.
Yeah.
So remember when you told me this? But it's just so it's just sort of like that moment kind of gave me that drive where it's like when you realize that you almost just died doing something you don't want to do, and then people you don't like, working for people you don't like, making money that's garbage, when you don't have any control over any of that stuff, I was just like, no, never again. Like,
what would have it been for at that point?
Exactly. And so I think my mind shift just completely shifted to like, I have to do everything now. And I have to remind myself, like, no, you don't. You're gonna
we do have to have the moments. Yeah.
But it just is really what pushes me to like come up with innovative ways to get a hold of producers or, you know, make more friends. And it literally changed me from being super introverted and being nervous and and that kind of personality type to like, I got to say what I got to say. And I just have to ask for what I need. And I'm going to take up space now. And I think all of those things are kind of just what that experience gave me. So while it sucked at the time and it was traumatizing, it's still traumatizing. It's hard.
Yeah, that's scary. That's, I mean, literally was like your life threatened. It was crazy.
I mean, I could go into heavy detail about it, but it was horrific.
I can't imagine at all.
I don't know how I held it together, to be honest.
But, no.
But I mean, all of that, half of me is so glad that all happened to me because I think I needed like that sort of an awakening. And I think a lot of people call it like universal energy, call it whatever you will. I feel like sometimes those things are put in your path to completely change, like to totally derail you from the direction you're going. So you're not supposed to go that way.
Yeah, no, that was a big sign. A little aggressive. You didn't have to throw me in the coma. You didn't got to do all that. Yeah. All right. Okay.
You could have just like, I don't know, made me get fired or something. But
like, I could have sprained an ankle and then maybe I wouldn't. Yeah. Anything would have done.
But it really did make it so that now like the stamina that I have to do the amount of work I'm doing on a daily basis is like, it works for me.
There's no turning back. It really was. It's like a incredible shedding of your skin and embracing it, stepping into like, no, I'm not wasting time, energy, you know, insecurities on, you know, maybe being more shy or these things that are natural to us. It's like you completely broke out of that shell, which is huge, not only on a standpoint, you know, with your career and doing that pivotal change, but just your own emotional where you were at in life to then come through on the other side and go, oh, no. Because that all trickles into, like you're saying, who you are and your brand and who you stand as. That shows up on set, that shows up when you're networking, that shows up in so many opportunities. That kind of perfectly also brings me to the other thing. I mean, you're making me want to like literally go. I took a day off yesterday because I had like horrible period cramps. I'm like, who the hell am I? I literally took a whole day off being like, I'm too weak.
No, those are terrible.
They were bad. I would admit that. They were bad. But I'm like, okay, I got to get back to the books. Like, you're motivating the hell out of me right now. But it's wild to me that on top of your like extraneous career, like just things you have going on, and that's nonstop. And I'm glad to hear that you do even have some work going on right now physically while we're in this pandemic, which is any artist that is working right now. I'm like, praise be. And I love to see it because it's very scarce, honey. It's scarce. But you're a businesswoman. And I kind of like that you mentioned the two brain thing. You know what I mean? Like you have the mathematics, the logistic, the business, but then you have the creative. And I think this, and for people that I'm sure a lot of people I feel like know you from this way, if they're like just entering into you, if they haven't got to work with you intimately, but it's you and having correct, I don't want to mess it up. It's called The Freelancer.
Yes.
Or no, it is called the Freelancer. Okay.
Yeah.
So like, I know the site is called the Makeup Artist Planner, but then the Freelancer. Okay. Getting it all right. But yes, the Freelancer, and it's not your average planner for a makeup artist or for anybody, because I am an obsessive planner. I will go to TJ Maxx and buy planners on planners on planners because I love having a physical planner.
Same.
When I saw yours, I was like, okay, but this isn't just like a cute calendar that says makeup artist on the front. Like, this is like, if I was a student right now in school, this would be like my Bible, like seriously. So that's huge. And I really want you to take us through where that came about for you. Like, how did this even cultivate in your brain to be like, I want to make a planner? Because we have many makeup artists out there, hairstylists, whoever alike, that do also have the business brain, but they make a makeup line, or they make a brush line, or maybe they make a set bag, like different things that are like kind of like the tools. But this is a very, very impactful, useful tool. And I want you to give us all the tea on the creation of it. And also, how the hell did you even come up with all the resources that are involved in it? I mean, you explaining your brain to me and clearly how you work, it like bleeds in this book as like, of course she would be behind it, knowing her story and what you're about. It is like, if I'm gonna do a planner, I'm gonna do a planner. So I want you to give us a little bit about that. I want to hear all the things about this planner.
So I ended up calling it the Freelancer. I was trying to figure out a good name for it, but I called it the Freelancer because in the back of my mind, like, I'm a freelancer first. I'm a freelancer who does makeup. I'm not just a makeup artist. Like, there's other things. I've worked in art department. I have, done a little bit of shop work. I've done other things. Like, I've trickled into the special effects department to do like actual practical effects.
Yeah.
I make a planner. I used to have like a small makeup line that I just like kiboshed because everybody's doing that. And to me, it's like and makeup isn't the end of the road for me. So for me, it's like when you're the most important part of being a freelance artist is figuring out your finances, keeping, track of your money, budgeting, seeing how much you're spending, how much is going out, all of those things. So you're a freelancer first, right?
Yes.
So that's why I wanted to call it that instead of just the makeup artist planner. So I just subtitled it. The first edition was just makeup artist edition. The second is makeup and hair.
Love it.
Because I wanted to be more inclusive with that department because we do sort of pivot off of each other anyway.
Yeah, we work in tandem. Absolutely.
Yeah. So I just wanted to make sure that some of the verbiage was just sort of aimed directly at them as well. And sort of some of the concepts in the book encompass what they deal with even in a salon setting. But essentially I'm a planner addict. Like, I love tactile things. I love books. I love to write it down. I also do use an app for like very, very basic things, but it's like a note-taking thing for me more. And then I transfer that into my book when I have time to actually sit down with my planner.
I love that.
So, and I'll tell you, I've had that app crash on me where I've had to re-download it and I lost all that information. So thankfully I had been writing that in a tactile place, because apps sometimes just don't, it's expensive to keep them up. Sometimes these companies dump them.
I love technology, but I just rely way more heavily on writing things down. Even your questions for today, like, I have to write them down. Like, it's something about it, and it gets in my brain more when I write it physically. It's like I don't know, something to it.
Exactly. Well, it's kind of like, what if, the app isn't valid anymore? What if your computer crashes? What if you lose your entire hard drive? Like, all of these things. So I really like a tactile book. So I was thinking to myself, I remember I was like on a beach hangout with another makeup artist. And I was like, I think I kind of want to make a planner. I've been sort of sketching something in like my iPad and GoodNotes. And I was like, no, I don't know. Do you want to look at it? And she's kind of looking at it. She's like, this is really cool. It was much more basic at the time. It was more like a calendar with just like a couple of random ideas of like, I don't know, putting things, at the end of the year, like doing a full like breakdown of all your clients and stuff. And that was also something that I had heard a lot of artists doing on Instagram Live at the time. And I was like, no, that's a pretty good idea.
Yeah.
And then I sat down and I was like, okay, I'm going to actually start like plunking out like graphics for this and just seeing, because I don't know how to design stuff. Everything I've learned, I had to learn InDesign on YouTube. Like, thank God for YouTube sometimes.
Girl.
But I learned really quick with designing things. So I'm like, okay, I'm just going to try this out. And I was able to knock out like a pretty good, solid first draft of it. But it was like almost 400 pages because I know. The first version was about to be 400 pages.
Wow.
But I was like, this might be a little too much. So I cut out a lot of the notepad stuff. I took out there was a lot more stuff at the back end that I was like, okay, well, this is kind of more advanced. So somebody who's not as advanced or as far into their career probably wouldn't find this useful. So I can cut like 40 pages here. And then it ended up the first planner ended up being like 250 pages, which covered 12 months, 7 days a week.
Wow.
And then I was on a string of really good jobs and I was able to fund it by myself.
Girl.
I started this whole thing and it was one of those manifestation things where I was like, I do not have the money for this.
Yeah.
But I found a printer and I'm like, we are going to figure it out and we will go as we can. And the guy, like, I thought he was going to need everything up front. And he was like, no, we do 3 payments. I can't do everything up front because you can't really send that amount of money all at one time without like legal stuff. And he's like, we do it in 3 small payments. And I was like, okay, cool. So it gave me like a 4-month period to get all that money together. And it was just like good job after good job after good job, like full rates. I'm like, oh, thank God. So I was able to fund the whole thing by myself.
Wow.
And then, it was just so funny because like none of it felt real until it arrived on a literal like big rig truck into my garage, and he's loading it with like what do you call it? Like a forklift.
A forklift, like, yeah.
This is happening. I can't even believe this is here.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it was nuts. So, I just really was thinking about what I didn't learn in school and all of the harder lessons that I learned about money and keeping track of appointments and keeping track of if I got paid or not.
Girl,
all of those little, and like all those little tiny things, I was like, okay, I didn't learn that in school. Like that would be valuable for a student.
Absolutely.
And then I was thinking about like artists that maybe work in editorial, but then they get called up for a commercial and they don't really do that all the time. Totally valid that they're taking that work. Great. You do you. I'm so glad that came your way, but you don't know how to use a walkie. So instead of not understanding what you're hearing on set, you can just kind of refer back quickly to be like, oh, that's what they're talking about.
Right. Or even knowing I should respond on a walk. Like there's so many things on set and it's so different from Broadway to, like you're saying, fashion editorials. Like I'm still doing makeup, but it's maneuvered and it's machines are very different. So learning the environments is a lot.
And even, because I'm still non-union, I'm on the edge. I know.
How are you? How are you even?
There's a whole other discussion.
That's insane to me. Okay, well, I'm moving to LA in 2 years, and let's get you in the union. I'm in the new union in New York, so it's not like I have the power, but LA would be. I'm gonna try to get over there too, so we'll pile drive it.
Oh, that'd be super fun.
Girl.
Yeah, we got to do this.
Yes.
I should be good by the end of this month, to be honest. I'm on a union show.
I'm like, you are nailing it. Yeah.
I know. I'm like, well, whatever. I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing because it's working. I'm doing just
the name of the game.
Yeah. I'm like, I'm doing my non-union, but, anyway, so, I was just thinking too, like there's a lot of like the crews that I work on, even on this union show I'm on, we don't have every single position in play.
Yeah.
And especially now with COVID, like we're having to slim down crews. So like we might not have a best boy and it might just be a gaffer and we might, not have a gang boss or transpo. So, not having worked with a lot of those crew members, one of the things I really wanted to make sure to put in here was like set positions.
Yes.
Like, who's doing what? Because if you end up on a giant commercial and you're like, what's a gang boss?
Yeah.
You're gonna look like a dum-dum. So I just really
and people think, I love that. And people think that they'll have nothing to do with it. Well, that's not my job, so I don't need to know what they're doing. Nope. When you are on a set, you literally have to know because you have to be aware of what is going on around you. And if somebody calls something out, and you're thinking, oh, I can just walk on set right now when they've called something out, that means no, you can't, or X, Y, and Z, a room tone, and you're yelling your head off. You have to know the etiquette and the verbiage and everything that goes along with it. Because, there are some sets that you could get really messed up quick if you don't, and it shows that you don't know what you're doing, or that you're green, or that you don't have that much experience with being on those types of sets because you're walking around with like your head around it. So it really does help. It just makes you look more prepared.
Exactly. And I think especially if you're going for, like even bridal. So I have a friend who does a lot of bridal in Texas, but she'll like moonlight sometimes on like corporate or commercial stuff in Texas when it pops up. She doesn't know. And she's like, well, because you're used to having like a conversation with the client, as they're in their chair. You can't really do that. You got to get that talent moving. So like all of these
like kiki. Yeah. No.
Yeah, like all of these little tiny pieces of information. You'll be on one set that wants you to fill out time cards and you're by like military time, and another set that's like just do an invoice. So I wanted to include all of that information because it is really confusing.
Yes.
And that goes across international border too. That's not even
Oh
just
yeah.
the US. So I just wanted to make sure that all of those little like, wait, how do I do that? So it just saves you a little time Googling. You could literally find this information Googling, but I wanted to include it from a place of like, I have turned this paperwork this way.
Yes.
This is what this means. This is who this person is. There's even like a color wheel that I added in there just for quick reference. It doesn't go as deep as somebody like Terry Tomlinson's like beautiful color wheel that she made, but it's just quick reference for you. So if you're just trying to like quickly, like what's an analogous color again? Like, oh God, because sometimes you're not working that way, and you probably won't if you're doing basic beauty, but maybe you have like a crazy scar to cover or something. That might be really helpful for somebody to have. And then something that I've been like wanting to put in there was like a hair color chart, like what is the base of a hair color, and that's something that got added into 2021. Because when sometimes you have to do like a quick aging in the hair, and you're like, how do I neutralize like this weird brown, blue, black, like, oh God, what is that undertone? Because we're not hairstylists, like typically. We're not real hairstylists. We're makeup artists who do hair.
But we thank you.
Yeah. Or even like neutralize an eyebrow color, like God, how helpful. So I added in a little chart explaining like what the base of a hair color is and how to neutralize it.
It's like a magician. It's wild. It's like you really hit, and you do an impeccable job on your Instagram as well as the website, by the way, as far as explaining, breaking down. I love it because I'm a visual person. So you could sit here and we can have a conversation about you telling me what it entails, and that helps me because I'm painting a story in my brain. But you do such great visuals and explaining exactly what she's told us here today, guys, for those that are watching or listening. It breaks it down wonderfully on her Instagram and shows you all the pieces, all turning the paper for you, taking you through, especially the 2021 one, like you said, coming out soon. It's like, and available right now, I believe, as well, right? People can order and start doing that. But it's so insane to me. You really touched like anything that I was like, oh, I wonder, okay, she has that. And she touched on taxes. And she touched on invoicing. She touched on even the little, I love the bridal inserts that like sent me over. I was like, what did she not think of for this damn planner? I was like, what? And you make it fun as artists. You made it also fun. Like, what's the part that we used to love as children getting a planner is the freaking stickers and embellishments that we got to put on our calendar to look at it and go through it and go, wow, what an amazing month I had, or what I did. A sense of accomplishment as well, not just work, especially for those that have way more of like, what is it, the right brain where it's creative.
Yes.
I need to like my business. My boyfriend had asked me the other day, he's like, how much did you make this month? And I was like, I don't know. He goes, how do you not know how much money you just made from clients? Because he'd seen me running around working like crazy. He's like, how much money did you pull? And I was like, I didn't track it. I'm pretty good at keeping up with like my emails, and I know when I haven't been paid. I usually just write in my notes the amount that I'm owed. And then if I get owed it, I take it off. Like that's it. And I'm like, oh my God. So that got me super excited too, watching. I was like, I could have a whole, and then to turn into my tax person, my mind was blown. I was like, this girl.
My tax form at the end was given to me by my CPA. Like she gives me that every year, and she's like, here, just fill this out and hand it to me. Our taxes will take 10 minutes. And they do. And it really does. Like if you already have that to give her, it really is, or him, whoever, it takes like no time to file your taxes. And like one thing that we seem to always be in heavy lack of, especially artists that have families, is time.
Yep.
So I just really wanted to make sure that like, if your focus is to get better about your finances, that is there for you. If your focus isn't, like there's some artists that are just like, cool, I got a paycheck. It's in one hand out the other. I mean, if that's how you want to do it, you do you. But you can keep better track of your money and where it's going. And you can see that like, wow, I should really have not gone to the supplier and dropped $400 this month because I didn't bring that in, or I'm not getting enough fee to cover that, or whatever. So if you really want to stay freelance, because that's one thing, that I'm going to be focusing on a lot more with socials next year, is like how to sustain yourself as a freelance artist.
And people really want to know it. It helps them not feel as scared stepping into that arena, because freelance, like we mentioned, it can be very intimidating. So
It's
to kind of feel like it is super scary, even with me have done it now. I mean, you have years on me as far as your experience, been in it 16 years. That's a long time. I've only done it about 10, and it's like it has taken me through. It's very intense sometimes, and especially when you don't get the knowledge, like you said, in school about how to deal with the business side. I'm my own boss. I have to do my own everything, the invoice, all of that, until people get an agent, or even in the union. I got to know where my money's going, how my benefits are working, what my insurance is like. There's so many questions. So to help you make it easier, I think you've done a phenomenal job about getting that together. I'm ecstatic for you, even that you've even curated this. I don't know how your brain works, because I'm just lucky to take part in the product, because I don't understand.
You know, and it was really funny too, because going back to the right brain, like one thing that I really wanted to add in that was like the creative side of me is like every year I'm going to do a different art theme. So like the very first year, I'll be totally honest with you, was sort of a crapshoot. Like I
still liked it.
I loved it, but it was like a last minute thing. I was like, it's just going to be like chaotic paint, because that's how I felt like the book came together. Like, so even though it was kind of last second, everything is inspired. Like, I was just thinking like, I'm sort of a messy artist sometimes, and I've got like paint all over my desk. Like the table I'm literally sitting on right now has like paint all over it, just from like other art projects. So I really wanted to kind of like draw back to that. And so then this year I was thinking like, I really wanted to something like sexy and like throwback to the 20s, and you know, like now makeup is like 100 years old, and I wanted like a little bit of opulence. And so I just kept thinking like, I really need to do Art Deco. And
so cool.
Especially in LA, there's tons of Art Deco around us all the time. And I run into it in a lot of buildings, even bathroom doors have like really cool Art Deco signs. So it's just kind of like, it's sort of a throwback to like LA Art Deco and the 20s, and a little bit of opulence. And who doesn't want something a little sexier this year, because 2020 sucked.
A dub. Yeah.
Yeah, sucked. So yeah, that was kind of the inspiration for it. I don't
Your attention to detail it's like intimidating. The process, if it's an amazing thing, and it's just you really like bleed through and through. I'm always transparent on this. Like, I haven't gotten to meet you, physically work with you, but like you're creative in your art, like who you are as a person, it's like forefront, baby. It's all the way up there. I love it.
That's awesome, because you don't know, because you're just living your life and
just talking, breathing.
Yeah. So I'm trying to be, you know, like one thing that I also learned from my little health situation is like, you just got to be authentically you, like whether people love it or they hate it. Like I'm just as transparent as possible. And I don't like, I have this whole philosophy that like, it doesn't matter. Like if I have a top tip secret, like just give it to the next artist, because they're going to use that and grow it and transform that into something else. Like there is literally room and jobs for everyone. So hiding information is pointless. And if you're better at expressing what you need kit fee wise and what your job costs you to do, because you can see it in the numbers, then you're going to make it easier for me the next time I talk to that producer. So we're also helping each other by giving out this information.
No, so 1,000%. I think you have to, anything that I agree with you on that, like mentality. And I think it any people that don't operate that way, and artists, especially in our industry, we all run into the people that don't want to share their knowledge or their tips or their trade secrets or what have yous, or even projects that they're working on, or things that they're imagining up, or product lines they're going to drop, or whatever it is. And to each their own. But I do think there's something special and to be said about those that do share it. And I think it just shows a certain amount of strength and confidence in what you're doing, because you know that it's plentiful, and what everyone else is doing and what you're doing has nothing to do with what somebody else is doing. You know, like you had mentioned, that you might not be the only person out there to make a makeup artist planner. But you and how you've created it, and where your heart's at with it, and why you even constructed it, and the way in which you've constructed it is so unique. And even if somebody then gets inspired by you and then wants to make one, it still won't be Alisha's Freelancer. It won't be. So it's just having confidence in also what you're producing that I think shines apart from people, in not only people that it might hold them back from wanting to come out and do their thing, because they're like, oh, there's so many people doing this, so I just won't even bother. And it's like, no, pull a seat up to the table and do what you have to offer, because there's plenty of room. So I praise you and I love what you're saying about that because I completely and utterly agree.
Thank you. And I think too, like, one thing that I just sort of dropped any fear I had, because here's the thing, like I was just telling you, I'm non-union, like nobody knows who I am. I'm not a massive artist on Instagram. Like I don't, truthfully,
that's how I feel. I'm like, who's going to listen to this podcast? But I love it.
Yeah, and I'm like, I'm just going to do this because I need a planner like this. So hopefully other artists do too. And hopefully they grab onto it. And it's just kind of like literally taken on sort of a life of its own, which I love because I wanted it to be a community tool. This year, I actually, for 2021, there's 2 months where there's a guest artist like speaking to a theme. So my friend Amber Tellerico, who I met through making this planner, like I can't believe the amount of conversation and artists like I've met through just making this thing for people. She does What It Takes, and she wrote a whole thing about failure versus success.
Wow.
I met a girl named Latia Curtis over at a class that we had taken like a year and a half ago. And following her on Instagram, she's got such like a vibrant, loud personality. Like she doesn't give you bullshit. Like she's kind of like me. She's very transparent. And with the entire discussion of inclusive beauty, I was like, Latia, I want you to write this. Like you write it. And it's harsh. Like it's no holds barred. It was funny because I was like, maybe I should help her like dial it back slightly. And I was like, no, you know what? I'm gonna like it's gonna piss some people off, and it is what it is.
It is what it is.
But I don't see the point in editing what somebody has to say, what their opinion is, and everything she's speaking to is truth. It's absolute truth. So whether you want to face it or not. So I was like, and I let her, girl, that it's a 2-page spread. Like most people only get like one, but I was like, you go, girl. Like
just go, say what you need, say your piece. Yeah.
So, and in future editions, I really plan on like all of the monthly educational pieces, it being like a different voice. Cause like everybody's just got so much to offer and different points of view, even when it comes to like negotiating showed up again this year. Cause I learned so much from a different artist about negotiating. I wanted to take it from a different perspective than I did in the first one. But yeah, so that's kind of, it's sort of just evolving with me and with you and with the industry and with all the people that are contributing to it.
I love that you're giving back to the community in and of itself, giving people voices, giving them a platform to kind of like come and be inclusive on and create a space. And on top of it, like you said, I mean, this is by no means a planner that I've seen it. We work in the same industry. It has not gone overlooked. It's been very much praised by some pretty big wigs. And so it's mind-blowing, right? It's a really cool thing when you do something authentically and you do it for a solid reason, and that always is going to shine through and then come out on top. And it shows in the product and it shows in what you're doing. So I'm honored to have you in my space and be sharing this and letting people know. Alisha, you have capped us out, my dear, but I am gratefully just so thankful for you and sharing your story, truly. Super inspiring, wild, and so happy you got out on the other side and like with a tenfold. Yeah, you are doing the damn thing. I cannot.
Everybody else should too. If you want to do anything, just do it. Just do it. Like that's my advice. Don't
take
DM
it from her, y'all.
Yeah, just do it.
Jump in. Now is the time. Out of all the things, I mean, especially in this last year, we've definitely seen what not to take for granted and what to kind of buckle up on and get serious. So jump in. If you guys are listening, tuning in, hop on that dream, hop on that goal, do it, and start it today for sure. Alisha, thank you. I did so well until just then. I called you Alisha.
Okay, you everybody else.
Alisha. I had to practice it in the mirror before coming here. I was like, she's Alisha. So
it's Alisha.
Girl. But thank you a bajillion times over. I appreciate you guys. We're going to put all her stuff below. Follow her. Check out the Freelancer. We may be doing a fun little giveaway this month, so stay tuned for that. Some lucky person might get an incredible, like I'm referring to it as the Bible. It's a makeup artist Bible, so we need to get it. But thank you again, my dear.
I like that.
She's the makeup artist Bible. We need her. Uh-oh.
Not give me any ideas.
Yes. Oh no, wheels are turning.
You can't even give me a phrase. I'm like, and product.
And it's going in. It's in the book. Yeah. Alisha, thank you so much again. I appreciate your time and for coming on Inside the Industry.
Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. We'll see you guys next time.
Bye.
Bye.